Have you ever paused, not just to wonder who's entering your life, but why they're drawn to you in the first place? Maybe you've asked yourself, why do I keep ending up with people who say all the right things, but leave me feeling empty? Or, why do I keep giving my heart to those who don't know how to hold it? It's not a question of luck. It's not fate being unfair. It's something far more subtle and far more powerful. You see, every choice you make, every boundary you enforce, or let slide, speaks a quiet language. A language that others can hear even if you never say a word. It's your standards, and they speak for you long before you ever do. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." But I would offer this. Your life becomes shaped by the quality of your standards. And if your standards are blurred by fear, blurred by loneliness, blurred by a past version of you who didn't yet know their worth, then what you attract won't look like love. It'll look like a lesson. This video isn't about blaming yourself for what's happened. It's about reclaiming your voice in what comes next. We're stepping into a deeper conversation today, one that asks you to stop waiting for the right person and start becoming the kind of person who no longer entertains the wrong ones. One who no longer confuses chaos for chemistry. One who no longer folds their peace to make others comfortable. Because attraction isn't just about energy. It's about alignment. And when your standards rise, so does everything around you. Your peace, your connections, your entire emotional environment. Today's journey is for those who are done with surface-level love. It's for those who are ready to be seen, not for their wounds, not for their potential, but for their presence. We'll explore the quiet ways you've been inviting what no longer serves you. We'll uncover the beliefs silently shaping your love life. And we'll rebuild, piece by piece, a framework of self-respect so magnetic, it becomes impossible to ignore. If you've ever looked in the mirror and felt the quiet ache that whispers, "I deserve more," then this video is your reflection turned revolution. And if that resonates with you, I invite you to like this video, subscribe to Stoic now, and share your voice in the comments. This is not just a channel. It's a gathering place for those who are ready to evolve. Now, take a deep breath, because we're about to begin a journey of reconnection to yourself, to your worth, to a standard so grounded, even silence can't be misunderstood. Let's begin. Number 1, self-awareness first. Attraction doesn't begin in your eyes. It begins in your mirror. Before you ever fall for someone's charm or open your heart to connection, you've already made a silent agreement with yourself. This is what I deserve. Most people never realize this. They think attraction is random, governed by sparks, timing, chemistry. But what we call chemistry is often just compatibility with our familiar wounds. And what we mistake for fate is often just the repetition of a standard we've never questioned. Look closely, not at them, but at you. What unspoken beliefs do you carry into every interaction? What version of yourself do you bring into love, into friendship, into moments of vulnerability? That version, that self-concept, is your standard, and it sets the tone for everything. As Epictetus once warned, know first who you are, and then adorn yourself accordingly. In other words, before you chase love, know what you're inviting it into. If you still believe you must earn affection by overgiving, you'll attract those who take. If you secretly fear abandonment, you'll settle for attention that feels more like survival than safety. If your definition of being chosen still sounds like proving your worth, you'll keep ending up with people who never intended to see you clearly. This isn't judgment. This is insight. Because here's the truth. You don't attract what you want. You attract what you believe you're worthy of. Self-awareness is the quiet compass that redirects your entire path. It's not loud. It doesn't shout affirmations into the void. It whispers truths, the kind that sting at first, but heal like medicine. Ask yourself, who taught me what love looks like? What did I tolerate, excuse, or chase in the past? What do I believe I must be to be loved? If your answers make your chest tighten, you're not broken. You're awakening. You're beginning to realize that your standards didn't come from conscious choice. They came from repetition, from early wounds, past betrayals, patterns disguised as your type, and you have the power to unlearn them. But this isn't about simply thinking better thoughts. It's about seeing clearly. The Stoics never said, ignore pain. They said, understand it. They taught us to observe ourselves with radical honesty, not to shame the past, but to shape the future. So pause, reflect, hold your past relationships, not with bitterness, but like a map. Where did you lose yourself? When did you settle? What beliefs about love, connection, or your own worth were operating underneath those choices? And more importantly, are you still carrying those beliefs now? Because if you are, they're still writing your story. I knew someone, let's call him Daniel, who kept ending up with partners who demanded more than they gave. Kind, dependable, the kind of man who loved deeply, but always walked away feeling drained. When we talked, he said something I'll never forget. I think I confused being needed with being valued. That was the moment it shifted for him. He began asking better questions. He got quiet. He stopped dating from loneliness and started healing the part of him that believed love must come through sacrifice. And as he grew, his standards grew too. He stopped tolerating half-presence. He stopped explaining his needs. He became the kind of man who could say, "This is what I require, not because I'm demanding, but because I'm finally clear." And with that clarity came peace. And from that peace came a different kind of partner. This is the work, not flashy, not immediate, but transformative. Self-awareness isn't about becoming perfect. It's about becoming precise. Because when you know who you are, you stop attracting mirrors of your pain and start calling in reflections of your peace. And when that happens, you'll look back at your old standards the same way you look at clothes that no longer fit. With gratitude, maybe, but never with desire. This is how your life changes. Not with noise, but with truth. Number 2, recognize low-quality patterns. Not every warning sign comes with a siren. Some come wrapped in nostalgia. Some red flags don't scream. They whisper, "This feels familiar." And because it feels familiar, we stay. You might have heard someone say, "I knew something felt off from the start," but what they really mean is, part of me recognized this dynamic and confused it for love. We don't just attract what we want. We attract what we know. And if what you know is inconsistency, emotional volatility, or conditional affection, then chaos will feel like chemistry. Wounds will feel like soulmates. And dysfunction will dress itself as desire. The Stoics taught us to see reality clearly, not just in the world, but in ourselves. Seneca said, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." But I would offer this extension. Sometimes we suffer in repetition because we keep mistaking the past for the present. This is why red flags so often go unnoticed. Not because you're blind, but because you've been conditioned to see red and call it home. Think about it. The person who never texts back on time, who always has a subtle excuse, who makes you question your value. You don't ignore those patterns because you don't care. You ignore them because somewhere deep inside, they echo an old emotional rhythm. And that rhythm feels familiar. That rhythm feels safe, even if it hurts. This is trauma bonding in disguise. The psychological loop that tells you, if I can just be good enough, patient enough, loving enough, maybe this time I'll be chosen. And so you stay, not because you're weak, but because a part of you still believes you must earn what should be freely given. I once worked with someone, we'll call her Elise, who kept dating emotionally unavailable men. Each time, the story was the same. Intense beginning, sudden distance, confusion, withdrawal. When she finally began to reflect, she realized her father had been distant in the exact same way. She didn't just love these men. She was trying to rewrite an unresolved narrative, to win a kind of love she never received. That realization shattered her and saved her. Because once you name the pattern, you take away its power. You stop blaming yourself for what happened, and you start choosing what happens next. The Stoics never asked us to suppress emotion. They taught us to examine it. They believed in detachment not as disconnection, but as clarity, freedom from illusion. Epictetus taught, it's not events that disturb us, but our judgments about them. And that includes how we judge others, especially in the early stages. So here's a powerful question to ask yourself when someone new enters your life. Do they bring me peace, or do they make me work for it? Love is not supposed to feel like tension you have to earn your way out of. It's not a riddle. It's not a test. Genuine connection isn't full of mixed signals. It's full of mutual clarity. If someone makes you anxious, unsure, constantly questioning your place in their life, those aren't butterflies. That's your nervous system remembering a war it never healed from. And the beautiful truth is, you don't have to stay there. You can choose differently. But to choose differently, you must first see differently. When a red flag rises, stop romanticizing its color. Pause. Breathe. Remember who you've become, not who you used to be. Because the healed version of you no longer chases intensity. They seek stability. They no longer fall for the push-pull dynamic that once felt like love. They crave calm, safety, reciprocity, truth. And in that shift, in that quiet, internal pivot, you break the cycle. You stop repeating what once hurt you, and you start attracting what truly honors you. That's not just emotional growth. That's liberation. Number 3, upgrade your inner dialogue. Before anyone else disrespects you, you've already shown them how. Not with your words, not with your boundaries, but with the quiet way you speak to yourself when no one's listening. The voice in your mind, that's the auctioneer of your worth. And if it's whispering, "I'm not enough," or "maybe this is all I get," then you've already discounted your value before anyone else even has the chance to. You see, long before you attract a partner, you're negotiating with yourself. And if that negotiation is built on fear, shame, or scarcity, you'll accept anything that seems like affection, even if it chips away at your soul. This isn't about blame. This is about reclaiming authorship over the script you've been reading for years. Because the story you tell yourself determines the relationships you write yourself into. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." And in our modern world, that color is often stained by past rejection, social media comparisons, and the echo of every time someone left us behind or misunderstood us. But that's not the truth of who you are. That's the residue of who you used to believe you had to be. If you want to raise your standards, you don't start with the people around you. You start with the monologue within you. Ask yourself, what do I say to myself in the mirror on a quiet morning? What do I silently accept when I feel ignored, ghosted, breadcrumbed? What words fill the space when I'm alone and hurting? Because those words are shaping the foundation of your standards. And the tragedy? Most of us inherited those words. From a parent who was never satisfied. From a partner who manipulated love into control. From a society that told us our worth depends on likes, looks, or being low maintenance. But here's the truth, the radical, life-altering truth. You can rewrite that voice, not through toxic positivity, but through fierce clarity. This is where modern neuroscience meets Stoic discipline. Studies show that repetitive self-talk rewires your neural pathways. Negative thoughts deepen grooves in the mind that lead to shame, self-doubt, and desperation. But the opposite is also true. Speak with self-respect, and you literally alter the chemical makeup of your confidence. It's not magic. It's biology. The Stoics weren't just philosophers. They were early psychologists of the soul. Epictetus taught, "We are not disturbed by things, but by the views we take of them." And those views begin inside. So what does this look like in practice? It looks like starting every morning not with your to-do list, but with a truth. One sentence, spoken aloud, written down, etched into your mind until it becomes your new default. Something like, "I do not chase. I align. If it costs my peace, it's too expensive. I attract what respects me because I respect myself first." Make it yours. Repeat it until it sounds like memory, until it silences the old voice, until your internal worth becomes louder than anyone else's opinion. Because when your self-talk changes, everything else rises to match it. You begin to say no, not from anger, but from alignment. You stop explaining your value, not from arrogance, but from knowing. You no longer beg for closeness. You simply magnetize it, because your energy no longer apologizes for existing. And here's the miracle. People start responding to you differently, not because they changed, but because your price tag did, and you finally stopped haggling. Number 4, create a new standard. You don't attract what you desire. You attract what you allow. And until you decide, firmly, consciously, maybe even painfully, what you will no longer allow, your future will quietly look a lot like your past. Standards aren't promises. They're boundaries in action. They are the silent terms and conditions of your life. And if you don't write them clearly, someone else will write them for you. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." That includes your heartbreaks, your silence, the times you knew you deserved better, but stayed anyway. Those moments weren't wasted. They were data. They were assignments. And now, they become your new declaration. But this part of the journey requires something most people avoid: clarity. Not the kind you post about, the kind you live. Ask yourself, not hypothetically, but as if your peace depended on it. What am I done accepting? Done pretending is fine. Done being almost enough. Done explaining your value to people committed to misunderstanding it. Write it down. Not in your mind, in ink. Let it live somewhere physical. This is your standard manifesto. Not a checklist. A compass. It might begin like this. I no longer accept lukewarm love that makes me question my worth. I no longer explain my boundaries just to keep people comfortable. I no longer wait for someone else's approval to honor my needs. I no longer confuse intensity for intimacy. I no longer stay where my soul goes quiet. Write yours. Speak it out loud until it becomes law in your body. Because without declaration, there is no direction. People often ask, how do I attract someone who respects me? But the real question is, have you removed what doesn't? Standards are not rules to punish others. They are structures to protect your spirit. They're how you say, I've outgrown this storyline. They're how you walk away, not because you're cold, but because you're no longer available for confusion. They're how you say, I choose peace, even if I must choose it alone. And that's where the real transformation begins. Because when your standards rise, two things happen. Some people disappear, and the right ones finally see you clearly. This is the filtering process of emotional evolution. Yes, it can get lonely. Yes, it will stretch you. But that discomfort is the sound of alignment. It's the space where your old identity burns and your new life begins to rise. Think of a house being renovated. To build something better, the demolition must come first. Old tiles must be broken. Walls must be stripped. Not because the house was unworthy, but because its next version demands more integrity, more light, more strength. So too with you. Your declaration isn't just a list, it's a new structure. A safer home for your heart. A sacred contract with yourself. One that says, I may still be healing, but I'm no longer hiding. I may still feel fear, but I've stopped entertaining what feeds it. And from this day forward, my peace is the standard. Because in the quiet act of deciding what you will no longer accept, you begin calling in everything you've always deserved. Number 5. Embody the energy you wish to attract. Magnetism isn't noise. It's alignment. It isn't about being louder, prettier, more impressive. It's about being rooted. Because when you are deeply aligned with your values, your energy stops chasing and starts drawing. In a world constantly performing, pretending, and posturing, realness is rare. And that rarity is magnetic. You've probably heard the phrase, be the kind of person you want to attract. But this isn't about mirroring external traits. This is about internal alignment. Living so close to your truth that anything or anyone out of harmony with it naturally falls away. Seneca said, nothing is more honorable than a grateful heart. But I'd add this, nothing is more attractive than a grounded soul. When you stop seeking validation and start living in congruence, when your words, choices, and actions all reflect your deepest principles, you become undeniable. Not to everyone, but to the right ones. So how does this look? It looks like no longer oversharing to feel seen, because you know your presence speaks loud enough. It looks like saying no calmly, not to punish, but to protect your peace. It looks like walking away from people who love your potential but ignore your boundaries. Alignment doesn't ask you to be perfect. It asks you to be honest, to pause before responding, to move slower but with more purpose, to live in a way that your habits, not your hashtags, tell the world who you are. It's subtle, it's silent, but it's strong. Think of a tree. It doesn't chase the birds. It doesn't bend for every breeze. It grows quietly, inwardly, upwardly, and because of that, life comes to it. Shade seekers, nest builders, wanderers, all drawn to the stillness, the strength, the steadiness. You can be that tree. Still waters reflect. Loud waves distort. So if you want someone to see you clearly, stop performing. Get quiet. Heal the parts of you that believe love must be chased. That attention must be earned. That worth must be negotiated. Because the moment you stop trying to be liked and start simply being in integrity, you become deeply magnetic. Not to everyone, but to the ones who can meet you where you already are. Remember, the highest quality people, those grounded in purpose, presence, and self-respect, are not drawn to noise. They're drawn to resonance. They don't care about the flash. They care about the frequency. So if you're still asking, how can I get someone to like me? Flip the question. Do I like the person I am when I'm around them? That question changes everything. Because when you align with your values, you stop chasing chemistry and start honoring clarity. You stop performing to be chosen and start living like you've already chosen yourself. And slowly, beautifully, your life becomes less about proving your worth and more about protecting your peace. That shift, that's the essence of Stoicism. It's not about being emotionless. It's about choosing which emotions deserve your energy. You become magnetic not by adding more, but by removing what's false. And in doing so, you don't just attract love. You attract truth. You attract wholeness. You attract peace. Not because you searched harder, but because you finally stopped searching and started being. Number 6, attract through action. Silence is not weakness. When grounded in action, silence becomes the most powerful language you can speak. We live in a time obsessed with declarations, status updates, captions, curated identity. But in truth, the most compelling people don't need to announce their value. They embody it. They don't sell themselves. They live in such alignment that their life does the talking. That's what it means to let results speak for you. In Stoicism, this is action over appearance. Epictetus put it simply, don't explain your philosophy. Embody it. That means your discipline, your purpose, your boundaries, your peace. These should be evident in your choices, not just your quotes. You want to attract high-quality partners? Build a high-quality life. Not for validation, not to impress, but because your standard of living should reflect your standard of love. Wake up early. Move your body. Guard your time. Invest in what expands your mind, not just your image. Clean your space. Sharpen your focus. Walk like someone who values each step. Because each of those acts is a quiet statement. This is who I am. This is how I live. This is what I will and won't accept. High-value people recognize high-value habits. They notice how you carry yourself in spaces where no one's watching. They observe how you treat your time, your health, your peace, and they measure that as a reflection of how you might treat them. You don't have to boast. You don't have to prove. The energy of someone who knows their worth speaks louder than any pitch. This doesn't mean you have to be rich, famous, or flawless. It means you show up for your life as if it matters. Because it does. And the beautiful irony? When you stop trying to impress others, you begin to attract those who are impressed by your presence. Let me tell you about someone I met. We'll call him Aaron. He wasn't flashy. He didn't talk about success. He didn't try to charm. But when he walked into a room, people leaned in. Why? Because you could tell he lived with integrity. His eyes were calm. His words were measured. His actions consistent. He didn't explain his values. He lived them. And because of that, the right people gravitated toward him, not out of curiosity, but out of recognition. Like attracts like. And when your results reflect internal alignment, they become a beacon, not of perfection, but of presence. So ask yourself, what does my daily routine say about my standards? Do my habits reflect who I'm becoming, or who I've been trying to outrun? What can I build today that will speak for me tomorrow? Because people may question your words, your story, even your past, but they cannot argue with results. They cannot ignore a life that radiates discipline, clarity, and peace. You want to change who you attract? Then let your energy become a silent filter. You want someone who values growth? Be growth in motion. You want someone who respects boundaries? Show them how you guard your own. You want someone who brings peace? Cultivate a life that makes chaos feel unwelcome. No gimmicks. No games. Just presence. Just truth. Just effort over ego. Because in the end, attraction is not a performance. It's the consequence of living in such deep alignment with who you are that anything less feels unnatural to both you and to those drawn to you. Number 7, be patient. Some things cannot be hurried. Healing. Alignment. The arrival of someone who truly sees you. In a world that promises instant gratification, likes, matches, next-day delivery, it's tempting to treat love the same way. Fast, frequent, and available on demand. But love, real love, the kind that honors your growth, your scars, your quiet power, doesn't sprint. It unfolds. And if you rush the process, you risk building something on the shaky ground of loneliness, not the solid foundation of worth. The Stoics understood this deeply. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Time is a sort of river of passing events, and strong is its current. No sooner is a thing brought to sight than it is swept by and another takes its place." What he meant is that time moves regardless. But what we choose to anchor in that river, That's where our power lies. So ask yourself, what are you anchoring right now? Are you settling into yourself or chasing someone to fill the silence? When you rush, it's usually not because you're ready. It's because you're trying to outrun something. The fear of being alone, the ache of past rejection, the weight of watching others find connection while you sit in the in-between. But the in-between is sacred. It's the space where your roots grow deeper, where you become so grounded in who you are that no one can pull you off center again. If you plant a seed and dig it up every few days to check its progress, you don't get a tree. You get rot. But if you give it time, if you trust the unseen process beneath the surface, one day, without warning, it breaks through. That's how your transformation works. That's how aligned relationships work. They don't appear because you're desperate. They emerge because you became someone who no longer entertains what isn't in harmony with your soul. I once met a woman, we'll call her Rachel, who told me she felt like she was falling behind because all her friends were in relationships. So she kept dating people who made her feel chosen quickly. But that speed always came with confusion, disconnection, and emotional withdrawal. Eventually, she paused. She didn't just take a break from dating. She began dating herself. Weekly solo dinners, journaling, reading letters she wrote to the version of her who used to beg for attention. And one day, she said something that changed everything. I used to feel like I was waiting for someone to find me. Now I realize I've been finding myself. And shortly after that, someone showed up. Not because she needed them to complete her, but because her life had become so full, there was space only for someone who added depth, not drama. That's the reward of patience. Not just attracting better, but becoming someone who wouldn't accept anything less. Stoic patience isn't passive. It's powerful. It's choosing presence over panic. It's holding the line when loneliness tempts you to settle. It's trusting that what's aligned cannot miss you, and what's misaligned will always cost you. So breathe. Hold your ground. Let the timeline be none of your business. Focus instead on the truth. You're not behind. You're not broken. You're becoming. And what's rooted in worth always blooms in time. If you've made it here, still and listening, you're already walking a different path. Not because everything has fallen into place yet, but because you've stopped pretending that chaos is normal. Because you've begun asking deeper questions. Because you've started watching how your peace responds, not just how your heart reacts. And that is the mark of a soul stepping into its season of clarity. Let's be honest, this path isn't glamorous. You won't get applause for walking away from what once consumed you. There's no trophy for raising your standards, no instant reward for saying no to low-quality love or rushed validation. But there is something greater, alignment. That feeling of walking into a room and knowing you didn't shrink yourself to be there. Of going to sleep at night without second-guessing a boundary you set that day. Of looking in the mirror and finally seeing someone you trust again. This is what Stoicism has always been about. Not suppression, but strength. Not emotionless walls, but emotional clarity. Not living with less love, but filtering out the noise so love can actually find you. Epictetus once said, "Freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control." And that includes other people's approval, timelines, or empty promises. Freedom begins when you stop trying to control outcomes and start cultivating what you can control: your choices, your self-talk, your standards. So as you move forward, let your life become the proof of your healing. Let your habits speak for your values. Let your presence declare your standard without needing a word. And when the wait feels long, when loneliness brushes against your ribs, pause and remember, you're not behind. You're becoming. You're creating a life so aligned that anything not meant for you naturally dissolves. You are no longer chasing what you once begged for. You are no longer lowering your light to make someone else feel comfortable in the dark. You are no longer trying to be chosen, because you've chosen yourself. And that quiet, grounded choice, it changes everything. If this video reached you at the right time, or if even one sentence stirred something honest in you, I invite you to like this video, subscribe to Stoic now, and share your journey in the comments. Not for attention, but for connection. Because somewhere out there, someone needs to know they're not the only one rebuilding. And as we close, I leave you with this. Every time you raise your standard, you write a new story. Every time you say no to what dims you, you make space for what defines you. And every time you choose peace over panic, you become your own sanctuary. Let that be enough for now. Let that guide the next quiet, strong step. We'll see you again when your spirit calls for more. Until then, stay grounded, stay powerful, and remember, you are the standard, and your silence is magnetic.